So I want us to talk about the judiciary in 2014, looking ahead at how we have done and how well we should do in 2015.
Essentially, the year 2014 was very remarkable in the sense that it can be described as a year of transition for the judiciary in view of the several landmark developments that took place. You will recall that the year 2014, there was a change of baton from the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Mariam Alobo Umar Mukhtar, to the present Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mohammed Mahmood. Apart from that, the leadership of the Court of Appeal also changed hands. The first female president of the Court of Appeal. And apart from that, even at the level of the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, you find the DG of the institute changing, handing over the baton of leadership to Professor D.G. Adekunle. And so a lot of landmark developments took place in terms of transition for the judiciary. Apart from transition, there were other developments in that you find that there was a lot of assault on the judiciary, particularly in Rivers State. Actually, the Temple of Justice was actually bombed. And in the Ekiti State, you had, cases of assault on judicial officers. And again, if you want to look at legal education, which is also an aspect of the judiciary, there was what can be described as mass failure at the level of the Nigerian law school, leading to, insinuation of, declining standard in legal education, and the need to ensure that, this standard is, this development is arrested. A lot of cases was also decided during the year, and it has been a very challenging year, so to say, for the judiciary. And a lot of reforms took place at the level of the Supreme Court. For outgoing CJN introduced a lot of reforms, mainly designed to speed up the adjudication of cases at all levels, particularly politically sensitive cases involving, high-profile, individuals. So a lot of developments took place. But you see, for the judiciary, and because of its increasing role that it has to play in a democratic setting, reforms must necessarily be ongoing. It is an area that cannot afford to suffer any form of neglect, because when the judiciary collapses, it has a multiplier effect on the executive and then the legislature. Because you see, people say the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. So one would say that in spite of the reforms that took place in 2014, there's still much to be done if the judiciary is to fulfill its role as an institution that ought to support democratic institutions and support democratic processes. Because you cannot even talk of democracy in the real sense of it if we don't have, without the judiciary playing a very key role in terms of being able to adjudicate over disputes between contending parties, and then being able to serve as an arbiter in the resolution of contentious matters. So you find out that there should be constant improvement of the performance of the judiciary. So we hope that whatever may have been achieved in 2014 should be sustained in 2015 and improved upon, particularly in certain critical areas, given the fact that 2015 is likely to be a much more challenging year than 2014. Remember that this is an election year.
The issue of appointment of Chief Judge was the genesis of the problem, the judiciary problem in Rivers State. And where do you think the problem came from, and what do you think is the solution?
The problem in Rivers State has to do with the role of NJC in the appointment of a substantive chief judge for any state. And this is part of the problems that you find arising in a lopsided federal system arrangement. Because if we have a true system of federalism, there must be devolution of powers to the federating units. But because our federalism is in the reverse gear, our federalism is over-centralized, you find out that on all issues, including appointment of Chief Judge of States, the NJC has to play a role. In fact, this is the way it operates. A Chief Judge is appointed constitutionally based on the recommendation of NJC by the governor. The governor appoints the CJN based on the recommendation of the NJC and subject to the ratification of the House of Assembly. So you find out that under such a scenario, the appointer is the governor. The recommender is the NJC. And the ratifier is the House of Assembly for chief judges of states. Now, the issue is who has the final say in the appointment of judges. We all know that NJC holds the haze in terms of determining the quality of judicial personnel to be appointed. Arising from the conflict between the interest of NJC and the interest of the River State government in the appointment of the substantial CGN of River State. That is what has caused the controversy. And I think the issue can best be resolved through, effective interpretation of the provision of the Constitution. So, if you look at the scenario I've painted, there must necessarily be a symbiotic relationship and understanding between the NJC, the governor of a state, and then the State House of Assembly in the appointment of a chief judge of any state. They must collaborate. They must work in harmony. None of the authorities have a final say. As a matter of fact, the NJC's duty is to recommend suitable person for that office. And after that recommendation, it is for the governor to then appoint based on that recommendation after approval by the House of Assembly. So you can see that the three institutions are very critical in the appointment of any chief judge of a state. Where there's a conflict in terms of who to appoint, necessarily there will be this kind of impasse that we have found.
Let's talk about the crisis in Ekiti State and, where two judges and also the chief judge they were beaten up by thugs. Is it that the level of respect for judges have dwindled in the past year?
The Ekiti crisis can be looked at or viewed from several perspectives. One, there's the politics and politicization of the issue arising from the conspiracy of the political elite. And when I say conspiracy of the political elite, I believe the blame is collective to all the political parties because of their struggle for political power to capture the soul of that state. The PDP is determined to wrestle power from the APC, and indeed that wrestled power from APC in that state. The APC too is determined not to allow that to happen. So there's accusations and counter accusations. So it's very difficult to be able to determine actually what happened. But if actually what happened is the unjustified assault of the judicial officers in that state, then it is condemnable. I say if. That is why I believe that what ought to have been done when the matter occurred is to set up a judicial panel of inquiry to determine actually what happened. If the outcome of that inquiry reveals that the judges were actually assaulted by thugs, then the question will now arise, whose thugs? And at whose instructions? If it is determined that it is the thugs of a particular candidate that unleashed the attack, of course, the law should take its course. Such people should be brought to book. And again, you also must determine whether the candidate authorized the assault. Because in a political situation, sometimes some of these leaders do not have control over their supporters. You have overzealous supporters who want to be more royal than the king in an attempt to, prove the point that they are loyal. They can go extra miles to do what is not authorized. So I'm interested in finding out what actually happened. I'm also interested in finding out the involvement